You've been here for the past Wednesdays. I've been mixing it up, so I figured this Wednesday we'll go with a guest speaker. I decided to go with my boy here, Will. The thing that I like about Will, man, is I can remember when I first came to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I used to bring a journal with me to meetings, and I used to write what I can from the speakers or whatever the topic was or what was going on, but I would see him doing the same thing too, so it didn't make me feel alone. And then that's just from watching him from a distance. I just recently, maybe like a couple months, like three, 4 months or so, we really got closer, started, talking and passing and meetings and stuff. But I really respect this program because, through mutual friends, I hear how he does his things, and I just love hearing that. Like I love to keep people around in my circle I could reach out to that's really working a strong program. Like when I had my year coming up, he hit me up and was like, "Hey man, it's about to be that year. It's about to be that year," and little shit like that, really stuff like that, really, really, gets to me. So, without taking up any more time, man, I'd love to hear his message. I never heard it before. Here's Will.
All right. Yeah, my name is Will, and I am an addict. I'm currently recovering from Florida traffic right now, so that was a long trip. But I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be clean. I love Narcotics Anonymous. It's done so much for me, so I always try to give back when I can. So when Mark asked me, I'm very honored to be here. I definitely congratulate. We celebrate clean time around here. We find the solution. And when I heard the name of the meeting, I kind of perked up my ears because I live in the solution today. So for me, I can tell my story over and over and over again, and I know that you guys can relate to most of it. That's what really makes us united. But I asked him if there was a topic for tonight, because sometimes you could do the just for today's or anything of the sort. And when he told me the name of the meeting, it made me think of my early in recovery. I enjoy going to Narcotics Anonymous conventions. When I went to my first convention, I went to as many workshops as possible. And at these workshops, I'm listening to these speakers have a topic, and I started creating my own, like a happy addict does. Well, I started talking to committees, and they were like, you don't make your own topic. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do with all this stuff that I created? And I have two that I created at the time, and they said, well, would you find a chance to carry the message and get it out? That's when you're going to do it. So one of them I made was S.O.S, which was Solutions for Survival, staying in the middle of the boat. And for this one, I felt like it was necessary because, 6 o'clock solutions. Why don't we stick to what keeps us clean, what got us to carry this journey? I like how Mark mentioned how I write at every meeting. It's actually started for me just to show that I showed up. So every meeting I was going to, I would just write the name of the meeting I was going to prove to myself that I could do this. It has progressed very far so, where I write at every meeting. I might draw a little bit too. You never know. So definitely draw. But when I go to the conventions, I picked up my 1 year at Sofricna last year, or the previous Sofricna before the one that just passed. A lot of things that I was able to collect and carry with me. Also, that's where I started creating all these workshops that I'll never get to use, except for today. So the one thing about the solutions, everybody knows the solutions are in the steps. If you don't, keep coming back. We have literature for it. But what I built that workshop around was when a fellow addict was doing the key tags and you read the suggestions given. That is very important to me. Do 90 meetings in 90 days. A meeting a day takes care of itself. That was my first step into Narcotics Anonymous and deep diving into it. I think it's very important. I like to say that a season changes in 90 days, so can you. And for me, that's what from my bottom, I'll just talk about it for a little bit. My bottom, I ended up with pancreatitis for mixing 2 narcotics you're not supposed to. I was on a suicidal path because I felt as if that was my only way out. I have 3 beautiful children. They are here with me today. And I would tell myself constantly that no one cared about me. So when I was hospitalized, I get a phone call from her guidance counselor saying, my daughter, my middle child, that she couldn't do any schoolwork all day because all she did was cry. And then when I heard her on the phone, she called me directly after, and she was crying, saying, I don't want you to die. And, as I say, they say in our literature that the stigma, the lie is dead, an addict, always an addict. Well, the stigma was also dead that day, that no one cared about me, because the destruction that I was causing myself was now starting to carry over. So when I got out of the hospital on 9/17, I was at my first meeting on 9/18. And a fellowship member told me about the 90 and 90. Said, and I was so, at my first meeting ever, it was a double speaker meeting, because when they said, is there anybody here for the first time ever, I became a speaker. I just spoke up and I said this long-winded speech about how I messed up my life, and the speaker was like, hey, he took my job for me, we're good. So I didn't know what to do. And that was my first solution, was to speak up, because I lived this life of pride and ego, and I thought I could do it all by myself, and I was wrong. The old way wasn't working for me, obviously, because it took me to this low. And somebody came up to me after the meeting, and that's a beautiful thing, is, the meeting after the meeting. I think that's a very important process and part of Narcotics Anonymous. And they said, well, what meeting are you going to tomorrow? And I says, well, we have a suggestion that you do 90 meetings in 90 days. And then, for me at the time, I was nervous, I was scared. I was like, oh, I think I got to do this, I got to do that. And this addict knew how to manipulate the version of that scared little boy inside of me perfectly well. He says, okay, well, I guess, I hope to see you around sometime. I don't know if you're going to make it or not. And he's an old timer, so I was like, what do you mean I'm not going to make it? Where are you going tomorrow? I'll be there tomorrow. He says, well, there's this beautiful beach meeting. I went to that beach meeting, and it was a beautiful beach meeting. And that kicked off my 90 meetings in 90 days. And for me, I like to listen to motivational tapes. And one of the motivational tapes used to say, if you're going to do anything, give it 110% of your soul. So I took that to heart, and I did 111 meetings in 90 days. That's just for me. I knew how far my bottom had took me, and I was at this point where I never wanted to be that person again. I knew what I was doing. I saw on my children's face as well as my own. There was multiple times that I was in the mirror crying, saying I never want to do this again. 2 hours later, I'm making the call. And I knew that I needed a change. And for me, somebody told me once that my computer upstairs crashed. And the way that I could fix it is put a recovery disc in. And for me, that was my recovery disc, was coming to these meetings and having the insanity lifted. Because for me, I was agnostic when I first came into the program, and I found what worked for me. I learned from multiple people how to make the God of my understanding the one that was necessary for me to carry on in the steps. But a power greater than myself was Narcotics Anonymous, because I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I would come into these meetings, I would share where I'm at, a burning desire for the first 30 days. If I felt something, I would say something. And that was definitely my solution for that, because I didn't want to go back. I knew where it took me originally, And I do say this often. I say, if you do feel something during that burning desire, say something, because we can't help you if we don't know the problem. And I'd rather come to your house with coffee to listen than go to your funeral with flowers to speak. And people are dying very, very often out there, and I think we're all miracles here. We all got the golden ticket. That's actually the name of this book. I name my books whatever works for me. It's a personal program, everybody. Let's work on it. But I named this the golden ticket because this was my way out. I didn't want to go back. And for me, an old timer once called it the collective spirit. That when I go to meetings and I listen to my predecessors, people that are no matter what, the predecessors, the newcomers. That's another thing too, is a lot of us, who start to get some time on our belt, start to think, oh, we don't need to worry about them. They've got 10 plus years. But we're all human. We're all addicts and we all struggle. You want to take care of that newcomer, but you also want to check on your old timer. Christmas can be a hard time. Thanksgiving can be a hard time. So, back to it, you get a home group. If you don't have a home group, they say you're homeless. No matter what, when I was going to meetings, I knew at 35 days clean that I've picked my home group, and I've been with them ever since, at Serenity by the Sea, and not affiliated. But I got involved with service. That was a solution for me. I started doing H&I at 90 days clean. And, I'm honored for them to now elect me as the orientation chair. So, that's how much we progress in this program. We learn how to live and be productive members of society. It's not just inside Narcotics Anonymous. If you look at our symbol, you have self, service, God, and society. You start to carry these principles and the solutions that we are given in this program out into the world, and sometimes we do it unknowingly, unconsciously, that we just start to live with integrity. We perform service. I perform service at the school, in my family, and it just starts to build up a life beyond my wildest dreams. Because when I first heard that coming into the program, I thought, oh, I'm going to have the nice car, we're going to have some money. How about I don't have to look in the rearview mirror and wonder if it's a ski rack or police lights? That's a freedom, the freedom of knowing that I did the right thing for the right reason and I wasn't looking for ulterior motives. Now that's freedom, So I got a home group that was, part of the solution. I got a sponsor. That was a big turning point for me as well, because I had trust issues when I first came into the program. I lived a life. For me, the reason why my trust issues spawned was I knew what I was capable of. So I knew what you guys were capable of. And I got to learn through the process that it was me. It was a scared little boy inside of me that was molested at 8 years old and that had started using drugs at 13 years old and had so much compiled onto me that I allowed that to break bonds of relationships that I could have created with such beautiful individuals. A recovering addict is an amazing human being. And we know how to do stuff at 3 a.m. I could paint a house at 3 a.m., trust me. But you'd be surprised how much we could... Somebody knows what I'm talking about. But, it's a beautiful thing. And when I got a sponsor and started to grow and trust another human being, that was new for me. I thought I had to do this alone. You can't work these steps without a sponsor, and the steps are the solution. I said this once. I know an addict heard it the other day. Somebody heard me speak earlier. I said, for me, it was like I had an open wound, and I was bleeding all the time, and I was trying to bandage it with drugs or bandage it with a new environment or a new relationship. But little did I know I needed 12 stitches. And those 12 stitches are the 12 steps. And I was able to heal through this process and grow as a human being. So I started after having a sponsor. My sponsor said, well, you know what, you need to start going to different meetings. Don't stick to the same, the broader the base. So for me, I was able to start going out to different meetings. Somebody says, hey, we're going here at 10 o'clock. And for me, even in early recovery, and still now, I go to different meetings. It's my first time being here, and I thank everybody for allowing me to do this service. But for me, I finally got to reach out. I used to be that kid in the back of the room. I was a man, but let's be honest. But I still was that scared little boy inside, sitting in the back of the room, didn't want anybody to talk to me, would write in my book just to prove that I was here to myself. And then after the prayer, I was out the door. Somebody would be like, hey, you saw that kid? And I'm just a cloud of dust at that point. So I'm already out the door. Because I was just afraid to let people in. And when I let you guys in, I realized that, there's a beautiful bond in fellowship. And fellowshipping's huge, we have a life outside of NA, but NA is my life. So, if I could touch on some more solutions. I don't know what time you want me to stop. 6:45? Okay. I can run the clock. It's not a problem. I'll do a buzzer beater at the end. I don't know what I'm thinking yet. But, so, let's see. I reach out to fellow addicts. I make sure that I maintain my meeting schedule. For me, I like to live in the solution. So I go to STEP in Tradition series, and I do the STEP meetings, because we all have a story. We all got here somehow. And you know what? I'm thankful for my story because it brought me to a beautiful place of recovery. But for me, I need to know the solution, because we're all unique as much as we are all the same. Because we can read a piece of literature, and the literature will state something, and you might read it a different way, or you might get something out of that page that I didn't. So when I listen to how you worked the step, or how you interpreted what you read, it may give me a new perspective that I couldn't find on my own, And we're never alone, never again. And that's a beautiful process, because I felt like I was alone. But that also leads me to another solution. Reading the literature. Now, most home groups have books for sale. For me, I have 3 children, and sometimes my brain can be divided. Luckily for me, they have audiobooks of every piece of literature that we have. And for me, I'm able to listen to the audiobook while at work. I'm usually by myself. I don't have to interact with other human beings, because when I'm on a job, I'm there for a while. Yeah, sometimes I do have to sacrifice my favorite song of the week, because that's how it goes. But if that's how it goes, that's what I need to do in order to solidify my recovery. This is very important to me, because now I've become a father, I've become a son, I've become a productive member of society. And sometimes I'm afraid to read out loud. I've gone to reading meetings where they read pages and pages, and when it starts to go around and it gets to me, I don't know, I start sweating more than me having to speak. I'm just like, oh no, I don't know that word. This is going to be tough. I'm practicing the word. I'm Googling it so I know what it is. In the meeting, I'm like, I know this is my part. Happen to be on the wrong page anyways. Who knows? But, the solution is working the steps with your sponsor. This is a personal program, and what that means is not that we have to do it alone, but we are very unique. Whether I write and fill up my toolbox with things that I learned from you guys, that works for me. What works for you to keep you clean and get you healthy, and start to realize that the past doesn't have to imprison today so we can have a better tomorrow. I work very hard in my life as well as in Narcotics Anonymous, because it was freely given to me. When I got here, you guys didn't want anything from me. I thought that was the trick right there. I said, oh no, there's going to be a bill at the end. No, there wasn't. It's just my addict behavior. It was my addict mentality. I didn't know how to live without using or transactional relationships. My life was very transactional. And now I can do the right thing for the right reason and not have to have expectation on what is owed or deserved, because nothing is owed to me. I'm doing it for the right reasons. But the only reason why I learned that is because you guys did that to me. How many times that I, at 90 days clean, my water was still getting shut off. I was still having catastrophic backlashes still from what happened to me while I was using, that I couldn't pay my bills. And at 6 months clean, I got evicted. And, life shows up. We try as hard as we can to put the pieces back together, but you know what? It just wasn't God's will. I thought I was going to lose my kids. Now I have full custody of them. Unfortunately, their mother is still active, and I had to walk away from that before I got clean. But I wouldn't trade this for the world. I get to celebrate with Mark, and I'm cheering him on because I'm so proud of everyone. No matter if you picked up the white, we're all the same. Anonymity says that we're the same. 100 years, 100 days, 24 hours. So when I hear you got 30 days, I'm jumping for joy. Because this is how, without us, NA doesn't run. We need 2 addicts to make a meeting. And it's a beautiful process. And give yourself a break. It states it in our literature. We take this just for today. And as long as I put the work in, I'll get just for tomorrow too. So thank you guys for letting me share. I appreciate it.